The ocean has swallowed countless ships. But what if it also swallowed an entire civilization? Imagine diving beneath the dark waters of the Arabian Sea. The sunlight fades. The waves grow silent. Then, through the drifting sand, something impossible begins to appear. A perfectly straight line of ancient stone. Another. Then the outline of walls that should not exist beneath the sea. At first, they looked like ordinary rock formations. But nature rarely builds in perfect lines. For thousands of years, ancient Hindu texts spoke of a magnificent city called Dwarka, a city of grand palaces, sacred temples, and bustling harbors, a city that, according to tradition, vanished beneath the sea. Most people believed it was only a legend, until the ocean began revealing secrets of its own. Were these underwater ruins simply the remains of an unknown settlement? Or had the sea been hiding one of history's greatest lost cities all along? The deeper researchers searched, the more the boundary between legend and history began to disappear. As the Arabian Sea stretches across India's western coast, one city has drawn pilgrims for thousands of years: Dwarka. At sunrise, temple bells echo through the streets. The scent of incense drifts through the air. Devotees gather outside the ancient temples, offering prayers before beginning their day. To millions of Hindus, this is not simply an ancient city. It is believed to be the sacred kingdom of Lord Krishna, a place where divine stories and human history have lived side by side for countless generations. Yet there is something deeply unusual about Dwarka. Unlike many ancient cities that slowly disappeared into deserts or forests, Dwarka is remembered for a very different reason. According to ancient Hindu texts, the city was reclaimed by the sea, not after centuries of decay, not through invasion, but in a single chapter that forever changed its destiny. For generations, many historians regarded this account as sacred literature rather than historical memory. That seemed like the most reasonable explanation. After all, entire cities do not simply vanish beneath the ocean. Or do they? In recent decades, underwater expeditions off the coast of modern Dwarka have revealed stone structures resting beneath the waves. These discoveries do not prove every detail described in the ancient text, but they raise a question that refuses to disappear. What if the legend was inspired by a real place, a place that time and the sea almost erased from human memory? From that moment on, the story of Dwarka was no longer just about faith. It became one of archaeology's most intriguing unanswered questions. And the deeper scientists explored, the stranger the story became. The first diver did not descend expecting to rewrite history. The mission was straightforward: survey the seabed, record the coastline, map whatever remained beneath the Arabian Sea. Visibility was poor. Fine sand drifted slowly through the water. Every movement stirred another cloud across the ancient seabed. For a while, there was nothing, only rocks, coral, and silence. Then something caught the diver's attention. One massive stone. Its edges looked unusually straight. A few meters away, another stone appeared, then another. Each one seemed to follow the same direction. Nature creates chaos. But these stones appeared to follow a plan. The divers continued forward. As more of the sand cleared, larger formations began to emerge. Long stretches of carefully arranged stone, massive foundations disappearing beneath layers of sediment, shapes that looked less like isolated rocks and more like the remains of something deliberately built. The discovery raised immediate excitement, but excitement quickly turned into caution. Finding ancient stones beneath the sea is not unusual. Coastlines change, settlements sink, storms reshape entire landscapes. At first, many researchers believed these might simply be the remains of an ordinary ancient coastal settlement. It was the safest explanation. But that explanation became harder to accept as more surveys revealed additional structures spread across a much larger area. Some researchers noted features that appeared consistent with ancient waterfront activity. Others remained unconvinced, arguing that underwater archaeology rarely provides simple answers. And that is where the mystery truly began. Because the question was no longer, did divers find ancient ruins? They clearly had. The real question became far more unsettling. Who built them? When were they built? And why were they now resting beneath the sea? Then another discovery made the mystery even deeper. The descriptions found in ancient Hindu texts seemed to echo details that no one expected. And this is where history and legend begin to walk side by side. As the underwater surveys continued, another mystery slowly surfaced. It was not hidden beneath the sea. It had been hidden inside ancient texts all along. Centuries before anyone explored these waters with diving equipment, Hindu scriptures had already described Dwarka as a remarkable coastal city. Not simply as a place where Krishna lived, but as a city designed with extraordinary precision. According to ancient traditions, its streets were carefully planned. Its gateways were heavily fortified. Magnificent palaces overlooked the sea. Harbors connected the kingdom to distant lands across the ocean. For generations, many people assumed these descriptions were symbolic. Ancient storytellers often used beautiful language to describe sacred places. That seemed like a reasonable explanation, until archaeology introduced an unexpected complication. Some of the underwater discoveries appeared consistent with features found in ancient port cities. Stone alignments, structural foundations, large anchors carved from stone, evidence suggesting long-distance maritime activity along this coastline. None of these discoveries proves that the ruins belong to the legendary Dwarka. Not even close. But they force historians to ask a different question. How did ancient traditions preserve so many coastal details? If the city had existed only in imagination, that question has never been fully answered. Some scholars believe the ancient authors may have preserved memories of a real coastal settlement that inspired later traditions. Others argue that similarities alone cannot establish historical identity. Both views remain part of an ongoing academic debate. And perhaps that debate is exactly what makes Dwarka so extraordinary. The deeper we compare archaeology with ancient tradition, the less either one can be understood in complete isolation. Then, researchers noticed something even more intriguing. It was not just the city itself that seemed familiar. It was the way the ancient texts described its final days. And that detail would lead the mystery in a far darker direction. For a moment, imagine standing on the highest wall of Dwarka. The city is alive. Merchants fill the crowded streets. Temple bells echo through the morning air. Ships arrive from distant shores, carrying treasures from lands beyond the horizon. Nothing suggests that this day will be any different from the last. Then, the sea begins to change. Not with a single monstrous wave, not with a sudden explosion of destruction. According to ancient Hindu tradition, the ocean advanced slowly, almost deliberately. Day after day, the shoreline moved closer. The sound of the waves grew louder. Harbors disappeared first. Then the outer walls. Then homes that had stood for generations. Finally, even the great temples were swallowed by the sea. Ancient texts describe the event with remarkable calm. There is no great battle, no final act of resistance, only the silent return of the ocean. For centuries, many people understood this as a sacred story, a symbolic ending to the earthly kingdom of Lord Krishna. But history asks a different question. What if this ancient memory was inspired by a real catastrophe? The coast of Western India has never remained unchanged. Over thousands of years, shifting shorelines, earthquakes, changing sea levels, and powerful storms have repeatedly transformed this region. Entire settlements around the world now lie beneath the sea because nature is capable of extraordinary change. Could Dwarka have suffered a similar fate? Perhaps. But there is one detail that continues to unsettle both researchers and believers. The ancient texts never simply describe a city that was destroyed. They describe a city that was reclaimed. That single word changes everything. Destroyed suggests an accident. Reclaimed suggests something that once belonged to the sea. And whether that language is symbolic, historical, or something in between, no one has been able to answer with certainty. Perhaps that is why, after thousands of years, people still stand on the shores of Dwarka, looking out across the same waters, wondering whether an entire civilization is still resting beneath the waves. But the sea was not the only place keeping secrets. The greatest mystery was waiting beneath the sand itself. Every expedition returned with new discoveries, and every discovery seemed to create even more questions. Some recovered stone anchors weighed hundreds of kilograms. Others found carefully shaped blocks that appeared to have been placed by human hands. Fragments of ancient pottery, stone structures, evidence that people once lived and worked along this coastline. Each finding became another piece of an unfinished puzzle. But puzzles are dangerous when too many pieces are missing. For decades, archaeologists have studied these discoveries, trying to answer one simple question: how old are they? The answer has never been simple. Some findings suggest great antiquity. Others remain difficult to date with complete certainty. The seabed is constantly changing. Currents move sediment. Storms reshape the ocean floor. Objects from different periods can become mixed together over thousands of years. That is why underwater archaeology demands extraordinary caution. A single discovery can be remarkable, but it cannot tell the whole story by itself. This is where the mystery becomes truly fascinating. The debate is no longer between believers and skeptics. It is between different interpretations of the same evidence. Some researchers believe the ruins belong to one or more ancient coastal settlements that gradually disappeared as the shoreline changed. Others believe the discoveries preserve at least part of the historical memory behind the ancient tradition of Dwarka. Neither side has been able to answer every question. And perhaps that is exactly why the mystery has endured. The evidence refuses to tell a simple story. The ancient texts refuse to disappear. And somewhere between them, the truth remains hidden. Not because humanity has stopped searching, but because every new answer uncovers another layer of questions. Perhaps the greatest mistake is believing that history and legend must always stand on opposite sides. Sometimes, a legend survives because it carries the memory of something real. Not every detail, not every miracle, but perhaps a memory powerful enough to outlive an entire civilization. And if that memory has survived for thousands of years, what else might ancient India still remember that the modern world has not yet rediscovered? Perhaps the greatest mystery of Dwarka has never been hidden beneath the sea. Perhaps it has always been hidden within a single question. How does humanity remember its past? Long before history was written in books, long before maps recorded coastlines, civilizations preserved their memories through stories. Parents told them to their children. Priests recited them inside temples. Travelers carried them from one generation to the next. Over centuries, facts became symbols. Symbols became legends, and legends became part of living tradition. That is why stories like Dwarka refuse to disappear. Not because every detail can be verified, but because they continue to carry meaning long after the people who first told them are gone. History searches for evidence. Faith preserves memory. Neither one is complete without the other. Evidence can tell us where people lived, but it cannot always explain what those places meant to them. Tradition can preserve meaning across thousands of years, but memory can also transform, as each generation tells the story again. Perhaps the truth does not exist entirely within archaeology. And perhaps it does not exist entirely within legend either. Maybe it exists somewhere between the two, like the ruins beneath the Arabian Sea, partly visible, partly hidden, still waiting for the next discovery, still waiting for the next question. And perhaps that is why Dwarka continues to captivate the world today, not because it gives us answers, but because it reminds us how little we truly know about the civilizations that came before us. If an ancient story preserved even a fragment of historical memory for thousands of years, how many other forgotten places are still waiting beneath deserts, inside mountains, or beneath the oceans of our world, silently waiting for humanity to find them? The sea has guarded its secrets for thousands of years. Every sunrise, the waves return to the shores of Dwarka. They erase footprints, they reshape the sand, and they quietly pass over whatever still rests below, somewhere beneath those waters. Ancient stones remain in silence. Perhaps they once formed part of a forgotten harbor. Perhaps they belonged to a city remembered only through sacred tradition. Or perhaps they are part of a story we have not yet learned how to read. To this day, no expedition has revealed the complete picture. No discovery has ended the debate. Every new survey answers one question, only to uncover another. Maybe that is why Dwarka has never truly disappeared. Not because its buildings survived, but because its mystery did. The ocean has hidden many things throughout history: ships, treasures, entire civilizations. But perhaps the greatest secret it still protects is not a lost city. It is the truth waiting beneath it. And until that day comes, the waves will continue their endless journey, keeping one of history's oldest mysteries just beyond our reach.